Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's a great honor, and it's great to be here first at Ulbrich Steel, which is a Connecticut institution, as many of you may know, for this very significant announcement of our Chief Manufacturing Officer, something that I think will be very significant in strengthening the manufacturing industry here in the state over the next 5 to 10 years and hopefully longer. Connecticut, as many know, has a very long and distinguished history in manufacturing. One of the birthplaces of the Industrial Revolution, and we're really involved in Industry 4.0 and the continued adapting that needs to happen and innovating that needs to happen to be successful in this world, in manufacturing and beyond. Manufacturing for the state is a very significant employer. Roughly 10% of Connecticut labor force is involved in manufacturing, and it's more than 10% of our economic output. My background, as folks may know, is not in manufacturing, but I've, over the past 8 months, become a very keen learner in the importance of manufacturing. And one of the things that really resonates with me that I think everyone needs to know is the multiplier effect of manufacturing. For every job that's created in manufacturing, there's 5 to 8 jobs that are created indirectly through suppliers, through induced jobs in that area. That is a multiplier effect that very few other industries have. So the more that we can have manufacturing jobs growing and strengthening here in the state, the more other jobs we're going to see and the more economic growth we're going to have and output we're going to have, given that significant multiplier effect. So with that, it's my pleasure now to introduce Colin Cooper, who has agreed to be the Chief Manufacturing Officer, formerly known as the Manufacturing Czar, but we thought it was a better term to change it to CMO here. Colin, just to go through his bio briefly perhaps, has significant experience, over 20 years in the state. Through significant cycles and hardships in business, which is important. One of the most important things when we were evaluating who best to serve this role was what type of experience do they have. A practitioner in the state was a must, but someone with over 20 years experience and very successful experience, I might add, was really, really important. The second criteria from my perspective was a deep commitment to the state, and Colin certainly has that. Many of you know him, and those who don't, you will see this very shortly, but his commitment to the state and making sure the state succeeds and maintains this competitive advantage in manufacturing is really clear and crucial, I think, for our success. And lastly, Colin he's of significant experience in helping the state in other ways already. So he serves on the Manufacturing Innovation Fund Board. He's also been active in ACM, the Aerospace Components Manufacturers, as well as involved in CBIA. So Colin, with that, I'd invite you to come up and make a few remarks.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'd like to thank the governor, Commissioner Lehman, the legislature, and the various manufacturing and industry groups for agreeing to create this position and for providing me the opportunity to support the manufacturing community in the state. I think it's only fitting that we're making this announcement today here in this distribution center warehouse for Ulbrich, as Ulbrich is a Connecticut-based manufacturing and supplier of precision materials to manufacturing companies to over 50 countries around the world. Manufacturing has played a critical role in our state for over 200 years, as Commissioner Lehman said, and we need to work to ensure that that will continue well into the future. I know firsthand the challenges of trying to grow a manufacturing company in Connecticut, and I'm also acutely aware, though, of the strengths that are resident in our state, including a highly skilled and engaged workforce, proximity to customers and markets, a critical mass of banks and lenders who understand and support manufacturing, and an increasingly broad and deep array of academic institutions and programs designed to develop and support manufacturing. Through this position, we'll work first and foremost to support the existing manufacturing companies in the state, both small and large. We'll work to position Connecticut as the preferred location where other U.S. and international manufacturing companies come to expand their operations. And we'll work to ensure that Connecticut is a location where entrepreneurs can readily start and grow a manufacturing business, much as Fred Ulbrich did when he started this company in Wallingford almost 100 years ago. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to engage with the Connecticut manufacturing community and work across various state agencies to address the current challenges facing manufacturers and to support the growth of this vital and vibrant sector of our state's economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. With that, I'd like to invite up Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz, a real friend of manufacturing in the state.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to Ulbrich Steel for having us here. They are a fourth-generation, family-owned company that keeps reinventing itself and has done that with amazing success. So thank you for having us. You know, when the governor and I were campaigning, we kept hearing about the needs of manufacturing. And we learned a lot. We learned that Connecticut is one of 3 aerospace hubs in the whole world, along with Toulouse, France, and Seattle, Washington. Connecticut is an aerospace center. And we have 160,000 manufacturing jobs in our state, and we're anticipating that in the next couple of years, we'll have an additional 30,000 jobs. But here's the rub. The rub is we don't have enough people in the education pipeline to fill those well-paying jobs. The community colleges, the EWIBs, the Department of Labor, they're all working hard, but we have so much more to do to make sure we have enough smart, trained people in the pipeline. And that's what Colin Cooper is about to tackle for us. And I can't think of a better person than Colin to do that. But before I brag on him, I just want to say thank you to our friends in the legislature, and in particular to Senator Joan Hartley, who shared our vision and had the relationships on both sides of the aisle to make this important step happen, because this is something that had been talked about for years. But finally, we got it done. And Governor, thank you for your leadership and for putting this critical item in the budget. It's so important. So why is Colin the best person for the job? Well, if you look at each of the criteria written into the legislation, he just had it all. He was somebody who had decades of experience in manufacturing, in growing a company from $20 million in revenue to $250 million. That is an amazing accomplishment. He had experience starting out as an engineer at UTC. He knows what companies in Connecticut need. He knew about a lot of the programs that we have in state government already to help manufacturers. And he had relationships with leaders in our state and our federal government. So he is ready to hit the ground running. We're so happy that he's accepted our offer, and we can't wait to see what he can do for our great state. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Colin.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So, Senator Hartley, please come up, because it is, for those that know Joan, her tireless efforts, and Carolyn's here as well, in advocating for this very important position. Without the two of you and your committee, I'd like to say probably we would not be here today. So really, in recognition for this, please make a few remarks.
Are you sure, David? Because we really beat up on you. No, you got it immediately. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be in this location because it kind of brings everything together. So Governor and Lieutenant Governor, and to my colleagues and all the manufacturers here today, I can't tell you how thrilled we are that you have brought us together and made this happen. And so, as others have so well articulated, this state's storied history in manufacturing has really distinguished us for generations, and since really the beginning of the nutmeg steak, as Connecticut being a manufacturing destination. And so today, with Governor Lamont's announcement and the support of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, we are here to once again distinguish this state in the manufacturing sector. And so with the announcement of this position, we will be able to continue to support and grow this incredible pillar in our economy. Colin, we're looking at all of these efficiencies we're going to achieve so that our state dollars are spent better and wiser, and leveraging and giving us the ability to leverage those investments, which I think will bring great dividends here to the state, and of course to grow the talent and the workforce pipeline, which is so critical to continue to distinguish ourselves. But it is true, Lieutenant Governor and Governor, no one could do this alone. It's been a great collaborative effort. And so to all of my colleagues here today, I just want to tip my hat and say thank you so much. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start off by thanking Eric Brown, who is leading the CMC, the Connecticut Manufacturing Coalition, which made, quite frankly, our work a lot easier by bringing together all the diverse manufacturers throughout all the states. So no longer did we have to deal with Southeast and Northwest. We had one group speaking in one voice. It could not have helped to expedite this process more. And so they came before, actually, the very start was the Manufacturing Caucus, which, quite frankly, is almost the membership of the entire, probably is, the entire General Assembly. We can't quite all fit in one room, but, you know, we figured that out. And they brought before us this concept and this position. And then, of course, without the work of the Commerce Committee and my colleagues, and in particularly my co-chair, Caroline Simmons from Stanford. Caroline, please take a big bow. And my colleague also hailing from the great city of Waterbury, Jerry Reyes, who himself is a former manufacturer, engineer, helped carry the ball in the ranking members, Senator Martin and Representative Cummings. And then as the legislative process goes, you know, that windy road to the Appropriations Committee. And so to my colleagues and co-chair on the Subcommittee for Conservation and Development, I can't thank you enough. And to the leadership of the Appropriations Committee, who got this right away, and particularly Senator Austin, who comes from a manufacturing epicenter herself. And so we're just thrilled, and I have to say, Colin, welcome. Look forward to working with you, and I, for one, am relieved I don't have to address you as Czar. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Harley. That was great. I'd like to welcome Dante Bartolomeo, Deputy Commissioner from Department of Labor, up. You know, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, you know, Colin's success in this role is for him to work across agencies, whether it's the legislature, the executive branch agencies, and involved in his recruitment was the Department of Education, Higher Ed. We had UConn, Connecticut Regents, Labor, as well as DCD. So Colin is going to work across government and across agencies, and that's going to be really important. And labor is going to be a very, very significant component of it, given the workforce challenges that we're seeking to address. Dante.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lehman. I just wanted to add to Joan's comments and pointing out a few people here in the audience. We also have Senator Norm Needleman and the Mayor, Mike Frieda. So if you would each be acknowledged. So on behalf of Commissioner Westby and the Connecticut Department of Labor, I congratulate Mr. Colin Cooper as he takes on this new and extremely important role as Connecticut's first Chief Manufacturing Officer. Mr. Cooper's credentials, both in finance and as an engineer, are impressive, and his accomplishments as the Chief Executive for multiple manufacturing companies are inspiring. As David said, I was part of the interview process, and we are just so thrilled to have him here. At the Department of Labor, we're excited to continue collaborating collaborating with Mr. Cooper in his new role for the benefit of Connecticut's current and future workforce. Connecticut has a rich history of manufacturing innovation dating back to at least the late 1700s, with the advent of precision manufacturing for farm equipment and furniture and cabinetry. But manufacturing is not only an industry of much history and pride for the state, it's also an industry with unlimited potential for our future. Simply put, Connecticut has it all. Right here within our footprint of just 5,000 plus square miles, we have a mighty spirit and a wealth of talent. And Connecticut does it all, especially when it comes to manufacturing. We are home to thousands of small and family-owned businesses, which are extremely critical manufacturers in the supply chain. And we're also home to many national and international industry leaders: aircraft and aerospace, shipbuilding and submarines, commercial and defense, fuel cells, power tools, and so many more areas of specialty. So the challenge that we now face is to quickly and proficiently train workers to fill tomorrow's jobs today. Whether through traditional pathways or manufacturing pipelines and apprenticeship, we need this focus immediately so as not to risk losing these jobs and to ensure our state's economic growth. As a state's workforce agency, we at the Department of Labor are fully committed to addressing our role in this effort. We are committed to fostering an environment of success for both sides of the workforce equation. For job seekers, like those in and out of school, the unemployed, the underemployed, the older workers, and for employers who are looking to upskill current employees, hire new, highly skilled, trained individuals who are able to acquire the skills from their mentors and meet the looming production demands, or to fill positions created by retirees whose transferable skill set and experiences are extremely difficult to replace. Therefore, we see great opportunity in that which we celebrate today. We commend Governor Lamont for his focus and commitment to developing and aligning our state's workforce to meet the business and manufacturing demands of our future. And we know that positioning Mr. Cooper as the Chief Manufacturing Officer will concentrate resources and attention and collaboration in a way that will address our training challenges and further expand an already thriving manufacturing industry in Connecticut.
Thanks, Dante. I'd like to invite Beverly Dacey to come up, who is a fellow board member of Collins on the Manufacturing Innovation Fund and also runs a manufacturing company here in Connecticut. So, Beverly, please.
Okay, I'm short, so I have to always move the microphone down. We all know that Connecticut has a manufacturing potential that is second to none. And my company happens to be in Bridgeport. It was established in 1958 by my parents. And I've witnessed firsthand what's happened in Connecticut, particularly in a city like Bridgeport. But we've chosen to stay. This appointment is a pivotal event for Connecticut manufacturing because it finally provides our state with that sorely lacking, cohesive strategy that will restructure and revitalize our manufacturing sector. Collins' responsibilities will serve as that essential hub of the wheel that ties together our state agencies like DOL, DEP, DECD, DOE, all of them in one cohesive unit, and consolidates our many competing interests to create a more fluid and focused manufacturing collaboration. This will position our state as a key player in the Industry 4.0 movement and restore Connecticut manufacturing on the national and global stage. I've worked with Colin on the Manufacturing Innovation Fund board for over 5 years. The majority of the time as the only woman and the sole voice for the small manufacturer. Big or small, male or female run, Colin recognizes that Connecticut manufacturing efforts need to address the myriad of challenges for all sectors and sizes. Our board has tackled many of these challenges, and Colin's input and leadership have played an integral role in the fund's positive impact. Colin's a visionary, an insightful listener, and has the perfect personal and professional tools to break down our silos, and ties together the disparate parts of manufacturing in Connecticut. Thank you, CBIA and CONSTEP, for advocating for all of us in the manufacturing community for this position. I also want to thank our legislature, and especially Joan Hartley, who's been an amazing champion for all of us in manufacturing, and believe me, we're all paying attention. I know I speak for many of us in manufacturing, especially for us women, when I say thank you, Colin, for taking this on. And I see Don Bolducci from my board here, and I know on behalf of the board we all thank you. Most of all, though, I want to thank you, Commissioner Lehman and Governor Lamont, for making this happen. And to quote from Indiana Jones, famous quote, "You have chosen wisely."
Colin, I didn't know anyone thought that highly of you. We're almost done here. I've learned in my 8 months in the job that the more people that speak at these events, the more important they are. So we got 2 more speakers, I think. CBIA was mentioned before, and I'd like Eric Brown to come up. And I know Bonnie Del Conte's here, Joe Brennan's here, but a close second to Senator Hartley in their advocacy was CBIA, and it was really great to work with Eric and the whole team. And Eric, I think, put me in front of a room of 30 manufacturers. He offered me and Carmen Molina-Rios some lunch. But at that meeting, I was hooked, and I understood the importance of this role to industry, and I'm thrilled that we got it done. Eric, please.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm very, very, very pleased and honored to be here, not just on behalf of CBIA and CONSTEP, but also on behalf of the organization that really flowed from their merger, the Connecticut Manufacturers Collaborative. When CBIA and CONSTEP came together a year ago this past summer, one benefit that we didn't really anticipate was the buzz that it created inside the manufacturing community. There was a feeling in the land of steady silos that if those 2 organizations could come together and find a way to work to the benefit of more manufacturers and manufacturing in the state, maybe other groups could do the same. And many of the leaders of the various manufacturing associations are here today who took a chance, who came together, who put down their defenses, checked their egos at the door, and say, how can we work together? And it was very quick to recognize what the mission was. We had an election coming up for a governor in a month. We had a new legislature. We had a current legislature where the Speaker of the House was saying, we want to help manufacturers, but industry has to step up. We need a plan, and you're not giving us a plan. So we got to work right away. We put a plan together, and as we talked about the various elements of that plan, whether it was technology or education or workforce, we kept coming to the same conclusion. There needs to be a champion inside the administration from manufacturing itself. Governor-elect Lamont very graciously agreed to meet with our group in December. He embraced the idea. Senator Hartley and her group with the Manufacturing Caucus and Representative Simmons, we met with them. They embraced the idea. This was different. This was different, to place someone from the private sector into government to be a champion for industry. And that's why we're so very, very grateful. We're really happy to celebrate. This is a really important event, not just for manufacturing, but I think for Connecticut, because it shows that people are really to take a chance, take a risk, and say, we can accomplish more if government and the private sector come together, really come together, and then we can as separate entities. And Colin, thank you so much to you. I don't know how rewarding this is going to be for you, financially, certainly, but hopefully professionally, given all your background. And I've watched you at the MIF, and I couldn't be more confident that you are exactly the man for the job. And we will certainly do everything we possibly can to support you and make sure that this is a success. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Eric. Governor Lamont, please come on up and close us out here.
Close it out.
First of all, Chris, thank you for hosting us here today. And this maybe means more to me than a lot of folks, but 100 years is a long time. You got to realize that 90% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500, generation or two ago, aren't there anymore. And that's because of extraordinary quality of the work you do, the precision of the work you do. This coiled wire, it's, you said 1/6 the thickness of a strand of hair. And to stay on top and the best in the world, decade in and decade out, says a lot about the leadership here, and also says a lot about the quality of the workforce that we have here in Connecticut. And it's a small world. We're there with Colin and Chris, and Chris's company used to buy from Old Brick. This is a network. They go way back. And we all were members, the three of us, of an organization called Young Presidents Organization years ago. Obviously, it was years ago. And just the idea of the networks that help us all do better. And that's part of why we have... God, what are you calling yourself? The CMO? I like czar. But this is why we need somebody to help take the lead when it comes to coordinating all that we got to do. This has been the home of manufacturing. Look, we didn't create Facebook. We didn't create Google here in Connecticut, but we've always had the Silicon Valley of manufacturing. We have had the most sophisticated manufacturing in the world. That's why we make jet engines. That's why we make helicopters. That's why we make submarines. That's why we make things the other guys can't make, and that's why we make them generation in, generation out better than anybody else. And I, as governor, appreciate everything we've got to do to continue to support that ecosystem and support that network. And that's what Colin's going to do. You're going to have somebody in government that is focused like a laser beam every day on the needs of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, from the big companies to the companies in the supply line to the startup companies that are out there right now, making sure that we can help you navigate what can be the complexity of state government on occasion, making sure in particular when it comes to workforce that we continue to leverage our greatest strength as a state, which is the best trained, most productive workforce in the world. And we got some catching up to do there. There's no question about it. We have thousands of really good paying manufacturing jobs. We better be able to make sure they are fed by Connecticut people right here and now, because everybody else has options where they want to go, where they want to expand. And this is a place where we have an extraordinary advantage given our great history. So I am really proud to welcome you to the state government family that we've got here, taking on your role. Obviously, you've got a lot of good friends in the manufacturing sector. I sort of sense that, and be able to leverage that and make sure that the manufacturing sector knows they have a great friend in state government. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. That closes out our formal remarks, but we're happy to take any questions, or I should say Colin and the governor are happy to take any questions you may have.
Governor, is this a new position a commissionership? Does it require approval by the legislature? Can you explain what's in?
It's in the legislature.
I mean, the hiring. I mean, the position is created by the legislature in the budget. Right.
It's not a commissionership, Mark, technically. No, it's an appointed position. He'll be housed in DECD, but as we mentioned, he's going to walk across executive branch agencies with industry, with the legislature.
But it doesn't require a confirmation. I think that's what we're trying to get at.
No, it does not.
Can you give us some concrete examples of the gaps you've seen in your experience in the private sector that you think you can help close in your new position?
Certainly. I mean, I think the first and foremost for any manufacturing company in Connecticut, it's about workforce development. You're never doing the wrong thing when you're working on workforce development. And I've got a bit of an aerospace-centric view on things, so I can't speak for all industry manufacturing sectors, but it's a common issue, my understanding, talking to other business leaders, just getting the skilled workforce. ACM, which is the Aerospace Manufacturers Cluster in Connecticut, has, we estimate, over 1,000 open positions today that they're looking to fill. And that story repeats itself across the different sectors. Plus, we've got a large number of let's call it mature workers, people who have as much gray hair as I do, or looking to retire, and we need to make sure that we replenish, that knowledge gets handed down, and that we replenish that workforce. So first and foremost, I'd say workforce development. We talked about some other areas like reducing complexity in the government, try to support. I know there are efforts going on now, and I look forward to plugging into those. There are, manufacturing today is a very capital-intensive industry, and I think we've got a good ecosystem of lenders who know and support manufacturing, but there are opportunities to continue to nurture and support that. So there's a lot of opportunities, and again, I think it comes back to working across the silos, working across the sectors of the government, and then working with the different sectors within the manufacturing community.
There have been some changes in the emphasis in community colleges that started under Governor Malloy and have continued under Governor Lamont. Where are we as far as what needs to be in place at the community college level or elsewhere in education in Connecticut?
I think the community college system is a real gem in this state. I mean, it is probably the most critical part of the educational infrastructure for manufacturers today. It really started with the development of the Snuntuck program years ago, and that has sort of become the blueprint for the other community colleges as they develop their programs. I just think that the community colleges are great because the people are there for a purpose, particularly sort of mid or later career people who are there for a purpose to move their life in a new direction. And the community colleges have been great for us in manufacturing, but unfortunately, the tuition at these schools only pays about half the cost, so there's continued support that's a requirement. But these are, you have people coming out of there, young kids who go in unskilled and come out, and they're not only making a good salary when they come out, but they're really embarking on a career. And that's one of the things that we're working to do, is make sure that people understand that manufacturing is not just a job, that there are really great careers available in manufacturing.
The emphasis on manufacturing has been, the groundwork has been laid for a few years. I know Governor Malloy emphasized that. What do you think that needs to be done differently? I mean, it is working, it's not working enough. Tuition, you mentioned, was one issue, but what do you think could strengthen that relationship and that partnership?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do is, in terms of the community college programs themselves, is make sure that we ensure that we have a pipeline of candidates coming into them. Our largest facility is out in Eastford, Connecticut, which is northeast Connecticut. We do a lot of work with QVCC. They've had in the recent past times where, and they've done a lot to develop their program, but they've had times in the past where they haven't had an adequate number of candidates coming into it. So I think one of the things that we'd like to do is make sure that we get the word out, not just to kids at the high school level, but even before that people understand that manufacturing is an opportunity to have a career, and not just get it to the kids, but get it to the parents too. A lot of time they're sort of the impediments. And I would say, I think most people here, pretty much everybody here, is supportive of manufacturing. You've been in facilities. A lot of our facilities in Connecticut, most of our facilities in Connecticut are bright, they're quiet, they're clean, they're organized, and so the perception, I think, on a lot of people's part of what manufacturing is maybe what it was 40 years ago. But today, it's a great work environment, and it's a great career opportunity.
I had a chance to look at the employment numbers in manufacturing, and basically they're hovering around 160,000. All last year through this year, they were coming up there. You're talking about adding 30 more, bringing up to 190,000, back to when it, comparable to years ago. I mean, is that realistic? I mean, then why aren't we seeing more growth in this sector?
Well, I'm not an economist, but I can tell you firsthand, one of the impediments to growth is having enough qualified workers to fill it. In aerospace right now, we're in sort of a generational change in terms of programs, and a lot of Connecticut companies have captured a significant portion of those new programs and are growing with it. But a lot of us are bottlenecked right now. We can't increase our output enough to meet the demand. And so if we can't meet that demand here in Connecticut, it's going to go somewhere else. That demand will get met. So again, in aerospace, I think the biggest impediment to growing the workforce is getting enough qualified candidates. And again, at the same time, you've got this so-called silver tsunami, which is real, where you've got older people retiring that need to be replaced. So you've really got two catalysts that are driving the demand. And again, I'm talking to people in other manufacturing industries. One of the biggest impediment across all sectors is having enough qualified workers. My guess is if we could pump out 5,000 to 10,000 qualified people immediately, they would be employed next week across the state.
How would the state do that?
What's that?
How would the state do that?
Well, you can't do it immediately. I think the state's done a lot of very good things building the pipelines. There's been resources that have gone into our vocational high schools, resources going into the community colleges. UConn has doubled the size of their engineering program over the last 5 years with no diminution in quality of students. Those are smart kids coming through there. Programs like CCSU. So there's a lot going on. We just need to continue to focus and build that pipeline.
How much is the high cost of living in this state affecting your ability to recruit people? Because, I mean, if there's jobs going begging, then there's probably qualified workers in other states. Why aren't you able to attract them to Connecticut?
Well, we're working on that. We're working on that. It is a high-cost area. There's no getting around that. But the companies, a lot of the industries that are thriving in Connecticut tend to be sort of low volume, high complexity, where you're really dependent on the skills, knowledge, and ability of the workforce. And that's really where we excel, is because we've got such a skilled and engaged workforce here. We just need to continue to build that.
Let me jump in for 1 second. I know this feels like a final exam, but don't worry, you already got the job. A couple of things. To pass is what do we need to do? What aren't we doing as well as we could? One of the things I have heard, and Chris, maybe you can speak to this, Norm knows this, that we can plan pretty well for Electric Boat, and there are 1,000 jobs a year starting in a year or two, and the fact that they're going to need 112 laser welders and train accordingly. I think we have to do a better job of when it comes to those smaller companies in the pipeline. And a lot of the big guys are taking the jobs, people from the smaller companies as well. So that's where I think our training and our community college and VOTEC could focus on those other jobs in the pipeline going forward. I also think we ought to make sure that we have state-of-the-art equipment that our folks are training on. You're nodding your head as well. I mean, training on equipment that's 20 years old does not prepare you for the jobs that are out there right now. And I've often talked to David. I mean, I would think these equipment manufacturers would give us a real discount on some of this equipment as well, just so their people are getting trained on where they ought to be. And I also just think we have to work on manufacturing and letting young people know what an extraordinary job it is. And, get this Dickinson, image of what it's about. I mean, these are state-of-the-art, tech-savvy, computer science-oriented, amazing jobs that are out there that pay really well. And that's part of what we ought to do for our pipeline, for our folks here in the state or those we attract to the state, to let people know these are really good-paying jobs, great career opportunities, jobs that change over a period of time, so we can widen the group of folks that really are interested in joining what is Connecticut's premier industry.
The number that the Lieutenant Governor referenced, 30,000 jobs. Two questions about that. What is the source of that number? And is that net growth, or is these jobs that will need to be filled as a result of a mix of growth and retirements?
So they're projections, and 10,000 of those are going to be at EB as they ramp up to produce the Columbia class submarines, and the governor was just mentioning that. So a big part of that is EB.
EB has turned over, what is it, about 40% of their workers in the last 5 years? I mean, it's extraordinary, the turnover that's going on in all facets of our economy, not least of which manufacturing, where people really need those trained skills.
If I could just say one thing here, and then we can maybe take this offline a bit more, but I think if you look empirically over the past 2.5 years on the net job growth, job growth I think is up almost 3.5% in manufacturing versus less than half of that for the private sector more broadly. So if you think about that, I think there's roughly 160 or 161,000 jobs in manufacturing, so that's around 5,000 or 6,000, rough math. So can we add a net 30,000 jobs over the next 5 or 10 years? Your guess is going to be as good as ours, but there's clearly a need, and you've seen the empirical growth outpace the state as a whole, and the way we do project in the next 2 or 3 years, I think you're going to continue to see that trend, because a lot of these industries have long-term contracts, and there is a real need for employees, even absent the silver tsunami.
Thanks, everybody.
So, thank you.